We live in a culture obsessed with results. Numbers, recognition, applause, achievements, these become the metrics by which value is measured. But here lies the deception. Results are fleeting, fragile, and often outside of our control. The farmer cannot force the rain, the sailor cannot command the wind, and yet we wear ourselves out trying to control outcomes that were never entrusted to us in the first place. What is in our hands? The work, the daily grind, the unseen hours of faithfulness, the patient plowing, the careful sowing, the sweat and diligence that no one applauds. This is where character is forged. This is where God refines us, where purpose is clarified, and where eternity keeps its score. When we become obsessed with results, we risk idolatry. We measure our worth by outcomes that belong to another. But when we become obsessed with the work, we step into freedom. We labor with joy, knowing that our role is obedience, not control. The harvest will come, but not by our striving. The results are God's domain. The work is ours. And therein lies the secret. Fulfillment is not in what we achieve, but in who we become through the doing. The illusion of control is one of the most subtle traps that hinders our growth and clouds our understanding of what it truly means to labor with purpose. Human nature constantly seeks to command outcomes, to bend circumstances to our will, and to define success by results that lie outside our grasp. But in reality, the outcome is never ours to own. We can prepare the soil, but we cannot command the seed to sprout. We can water diligently, but we cannot dictate when fruit appears. The weather, the timing, the increase, these belong to God, not to us. This is why becoming obsessed with results is a dangerous path. It puts our hearts in bondage to things beyond our control. When the results do not meet our expectations, we despair, and when they surpass them, we risk pride. Both extremes pull us away from faithfulness and into self-centeredness. The truth is liberating. Our calling is not to master results, but to master faithfulness in the work. The illusion of control blinds us to this. It tricks us into believing that if we just try harder, plan sharper, or push longer, the results will bend to our will. Yet life continually proves otherwise. Storms come, delays frustrate, circumstances change without warning, and even when we achieve the desired result, it never satisfies as fully as we imagined. The reason is simple. We were never designed to find our fulfillment in outcomes, but in obedience. When we shift our focus from results to the work itself, we break free from this illusion. The work becomes an act of worship rather than a means of control. Every stroke of the pen, every nail driven, every seed planted, done with integrity and diligence, is enough, because it is faithful labor. And when we work this way, with our eyes off the results and fixed on the one who oversees them, a strange peace begins to settle into our souls. We no longer ride the roller coaster of fluctuating outcomes. We no longer define ourselves by wins and losses. Instead, we root ourselves in the steadiness of obedience. This is the great irony. When you stop obsessing over results and surrender them to God, you often find that results come in their own season. But by then, they are no longer idols. They are simply fruit of a life lived in faithfulness. The illusion of control is shattered, and in its place rises the reality of trust. And trust, not control, is the true foundation of a meaningful life. The discipline of faithfulness is not glamorous, but it is the backbone of every lasting achievement and every life of significance. Faithfulness is steady. It is the ability to show up day after day, to give your best in the task before you, regardless of whether anyone is watching or whether immediate results appear. It requires patience, humility, and a willingness to embrace the ordinary. In a world that idolizes the spectacular and measures worth by applause, the discipline of faithfulness often goes unnoticed. Yet in God's economy, it is the foundation upon which everything else is built. Faithfulness demands that we embrace consistency even when the work feels mundane. Think of the craftsman who shapes wood with steady hands, or the teacher who pours into students year after year, never knowing which seed will flourish. Faithfulness does not ask whether today's work will bring visible success. It simply asks whether today's work has been done well, with integrity and diligence. It is not about speed or short-term recognition, but about endurance and trust in a process that unfolds slowly. This discipline also guards the heart. When we chase after results, we are prone to discouragement when they delay and pride when they arrive. Faithfulness, however, keeps us grounded. It reminds us that we are not working for the shifting approval of man, but for the steady gaze of God. Results fluctuate, but the standard of obedience never changes. In this way, faithfulness stabilizes us against the storms of comparison, competition, and envy. Faithfulness also transforms us. The process of showing up consistently shapes our character in ways that sudden success never could. It is in the repetition, the unseen hours, the quiet perseverance, that strength is forged. Muscles are built by repetition, not by a single heroic lift. In the same way, character is built by steady obedience, not by occasional bursts of zeal. Faithfulness turns us into people who can be trusted, who can endure pressure, who can be relied upon when challenges arise. Faithfulness positions us for fruitfulness. It does not guarantee instant results, but it lays the groundwork for them to appear in their time. A farmer who tends his field faithfully may endure seasons of drought, but his discipline ensures that when the rains come, the soil is ready. Faithfulness is never wasted effort. It is investment in future harvests, whether seen in this life or in eternity. To be faithful is to embrace the slow, steady way of growth. It means choosing obedience over recognition, diligence over distraction, and endurance over shortcuts. It is not about chasing outcomes, but about living in such a way that every task, no matter how small, is infused with meaning because it is done unto the Lord. In the end, results will fade, but faithfulness endures, echoing into eternity. Seeds, not harvests. That is where our responsibility begins and ends. Too often we live as though the measure of our worth is determined by the size of the harvest we produce. We compare fields, we envy barns filled to the brim, and we despair when our own hands seem empty. But this is a distortion of truth. Nowhere are we told to command the harvest. Our calling is far simpler, yet far more profound: to plant faithfully, to water diligently, and to leave the increase to God. The power of a seed is a mystery. Within that small, fragile form lies life, but no farmer can force it open. He can prepare the soil, guard against weeds, and ensure water flows, but he cannot speak the seed into sprouting. It happens in a realm beyond his control, unseen in the darkness of the soil. And so it is with our work. We scatter words, deeds, and acts of service like seeds across the field of life. We may never know which will take root or how long it will take. Some may sprout quickly and then wither, while others may lie dormant for years before breaking the surface. If we become obsessed with the harvest, frustration will follow. We will look at empty fields and conclude that our labor was in vain. We will grow bitter when others seem to reap abundance while we wait for even a single blade of green. But when we set our hearts on the work of sowing, we find peace. Each seed planted becomes an act of faith, a declaration that the unseen hand of God will bring increase in His own timing. We need not chase results. We need only remain faithful in sowing. This perspective also protects us from pride. If we were to think the harvest belonged to us, we would exalt ourselves for every fruitful outcome. But when we recognize that the harvest is God's, humility becomes our safeguard. We cannot boast in what was never ours to control. Our joy comes not in the harvest itself, but in the knowledge that we labored faithfully in planting and watering. Seeds also teach us patience. Growth is slow, invisible at first, and often requires seasons of waiting. A culture addicted to immediacy struggles with this truth, but there is no shortcut to authentic fruitfulness. Rushing the process produces shallow roots and fragile growth. But when we accept that our role is simply to sow, we can wait with calm assurance, trusting that life will emerge in its appointed season. To live as a sower is to embrace both humility and hope. Humility because the harvest is beyond us. Hope because every seed planted carries potential far greater than we can imagine. The call is clear: sow generously, water faithfully, and leave the rest in God's hands. The harvest will come, but only in His time. The danger of idols is subtle because idols often disguise themselves as good things. Results, achievements, recognition, none of these are evil in themselves. In fact, they can be gifts and rewards when received in the right way. But when our hearts begin to cling to them, when our worth becomes tied to them, they cease to be blessings and become chains. This is the great danger. When we obsess over results, we risk transforming them into idols that rule us. An idol is anything that takes the place of God in our affections, anything that we look to for validation, security, or identity, and results, with their promise of applause and affirmation, are particularly dangerous idols. Idolatry begins subtly. At first it may seem like we are simply striving for excellence, pushing ourselves to achieve, but over time, the results we chase start dictating our emotions. When we succeed, we feel worthy. When we fail, we feel worthless. Our peace rises and falls with numbers, metrics, or recognition. In that moment, the work is no longer an offering. It is a transaction. We no longer labor out of faithfulness, but out of hunger for approval. This is the soil in which idols thrive. The danger deepens because idols demand sacrifice. To maintain our pursuit of results, we begin sacrificing relationships, health, integrity, even our connection with God. We cut corners, we neglect rest, we compromise values, all to feed the idol of success. And yet idols are never satisfied. No matter how much we achieve, it is never enough. The bar always moves higher, and the chase never ends. This is the bondage of idolatry. It promises fulfillment but delivers emptiness. The only antidote is to fix our gaze back on the work itself, done as unto the Lord. When the work is our focus, we free ourselves from slavery to results. We can labor with excellence without needing outcomes to define us. We can rejoice in fruit when it comes, but remain at peace when it does not, because our identity is not tethered to what we produce. Instead, it is anchored in faithfulness. This reorients our motives. The applause of people becomes secondary, and the pleasure of God becomes primary. The danger of idols also teaches us vigilance. We must constantly examine our hearts, asking, why am I doing this? Is my joy in the process or only in the product? Have I allowed results to determine my worth? These questions expose hidden idols and call us back to purity of purpose. Results will come and go, but idols enslave. To guard our hearts, we must resist the temptation to bow to outcomes. The work itself is sacred when offered to God, and in that sacred offering, idols lose their grip. Results can be received as blessings, but they must never become masters. The moment they do, we trade freedom for bondage. The wise choose freedom, the freedom of faithfulness without idolatry. The real transformation does not take place in the spotlight of results, but in the hidden grind of the work itself. Outcomes are fleeting. They can be celebrated for a moment, but they fade just as quickly. What endures is the shaping of our hearts and minds in the process of labor. Results may impress others, but the process refines us. This is why those who become obsessed with the work find themselves changed in ways that no recognition could ever achieve. The work is where our rough edges are smoothed, where our impatience is tested, and where our endurance is stretched. It is not glamorous, but it is sacred. When we focus only on results, we miss the deep transformation that comes from the journey. A musician who obsesses over applause may never appreciate the long, painstaking hours of practice that mold not only skill, but character. An athlete who lives for trophies may overlook the discipline, sacrifice, and humility forged in training. A servant of God who desires only visible fruit may neglect the hidden lessons learned in prayer, study, and quiet obedience. The real treasure is not the applause at the end, but the person we become through the unseen toil. This process also reveals our dependence. In the struggle of the work, when strength feels insufficient and progress slow, we are reminded that we cannot carry the burden alone. We learn reliance, humility, and perseverance. These qualities are rarely birthed in moments of victory, but are forged in the silence of preparation. The results we seek may pass away, but the lessons learned in the process become part of us forever. Transformation through the work guards us from the emptiness of superficial success. Many achieve outward results yet remain hollow inside because they bypass the deeper shaping that comes through patient labor. They reach the destination but miss the journey, and so their success feels shallow. True transformation makes success meaningful because the work has aligned our character with the fruit we bear. The work also refines motives. Results can feed pride, but the process humbles us. It strips away illusions, reveals weaknesses, and forces us to confront who we are when no one is watching. In this way, the work sanctifies. It chisels away selfish ambition and replaces it with integrity, patience, and resilience. These are treasures no outcome can replicate. The results may or may not come, but the transformation of our character endures. we become steadier, humbler, more disciplined, more compassionate. And in eternity, this shaping of who we are will matter far more than any earthly outcome. The world may remember results, but God remembers faithfulness. And it is in the faithfulness of the work, not the results, that our souls are refined and our lives truly changed. Patience in the hidden years is one of the hardest lessons for us to embrace, yet it is often in those unseen seasons that the deepest preparation takes place. We are conditioned to crave instant recognition, to want fruit without waiting, and to equate visibility with value. But God does some of His greatest work in obscurity. The hidden years, when no one notices, when results seem invisible, when effort feels unacknowledged, are not wasted years. They are sacred classrooms where perseverance, humility, and quiet strength are forged. Consider the lives of those who accomplished much. Their visible moments of impact were always preceded by long stretches of hidden preparation. The prophet endured years of solitude before speaking to nations. The shepherd spent countless nights watching sheep before facing giants. Even the carpenter labored in silence before stepping into the fullness of his calling. These hidden years were not delays, they were foundations. Without them, the public victories would have crumbled. Patience in these seasons means learning to value the unseen. It means trusting that the work done in silence matters just as much as the work done in the spotlight. Each prayer whispered in solitude, each unseen act of diligence, each quiet choice of integrity is a seed sown into eternity. Though no one applauds, heaven records every moment of faithfulness. In time, these hidden investments prepare us for responsibilities greater than we can now imagine. Impatience, however, can be destructive. When we rush ahead of the hidden years, we forfeit maturity. A tree forced to grow too quickly will have shallow roots, easily toppled by the storm. Likewise, a life that seeks results without preparation risks collapse. Patience in obscurity allows roots to grow deep, unseen but unshakable, so that when the winds of pressure and success arrive, the life stands firm. There is also a stripping away in hidden years. With no audience to impress, we are forced to confront our motives. We discover whether we are working for recognition or truly for faithfulness. The hidden years test sincerity, burning away pride and ambition until only genuine devotion remains. This refining cannot happen in the glare of visibility. It requires the quiet of obscurity. In learning patience here, we also learn freedom. We are freed from the tyranny of needing to be noticed, freed from the anxiety of proving ourselves, freed from the insecurity of comparison. Instead, we rest in the knowledge that unseen labor is still meaningful labor. We wait not with despair, but with hope, knowing that God's timing is never late. When the hidden years give way to visible fruit, we find ourselves prepared, not merely by knowledge, but by character. The patience we learn becomes the very strength that sustains us. Thus, the hidden years, though difficult, are gifts. They remind us that true greatness is not forged in applause, but in obscurity, where patience births resilience and quiet faithfulness becomes the foundation for lasting impact. Eternal perspective changes everything about how we view the work we do and the results we long for. Results are temporary, they fade with time, they lose their shine, and they are soon forgotten by those who once celebrated them. Awards gather dust, titles are replaced, and records are broken. Yet faithfulness in the work echoes far beyond the fleeting applause of this world. When we labor with eternity in mind, every act of diligence, every quiet choice of obedience, every moment of perseverance becomes an investment that will outlast time itself. When our eyes are fixed only on results, we measure worth by temporary scales. Success becomes about numbers, recognition, or influence, all of which vanish with the passing of years. But when our vision stretches into eternity, the measure shifts. Suddenly, it is not about how much we accomplished in the eyes of men, but about how faithfully we labored in the eyes of God. Eternity reveals that small, unseen acts of faithfulness carry weight greater than the grandest achievements celebrated by the world. This perspective also brings freedom from anxiety. When results belong to time, we feel pressured to secure them quickly, to prove ourselves before opportunities slip away. But eternity is not bound by deadlines. We can labor steadily, patiently, knowing that no faithful act is wasted, no sacrifice forgotten. The eternal God sees every seed planted and every tear shed, and He weaves them into a story far greater than what we can see now. Results in time may disappoint, but investments in eternity never return empty. Eternal perspective also anchors us in trials. When hardship comes, when results seem delayed or absent, we are tempted to despair. But when we remember that our labor is not merely for this life, hope is rekindled. Suffering endured with faithfulness becomes part of a testimony that outlasts pain. Temporary setbacks lose their sting when seen in the light of eternity's promise. We realize that the work we do is not in vain, even if no one here acknowledges it. Eternity strips away illusions. The results we prize so highly now will look small in the light of forever, but the faithfulness we practiced in obscurity, the diligence that no one saw, the sacrifices that seemed insignificant, these will shine with a glory we cannot now comprehend. Eternity will expose what truly mattered, not the applause of men, but the approval of God. To live with eternal perspective is to shift focus from success to significance, from results to obedience, from temporary crowns to everlasting rewards. It is to understand that the true harvest is not measured in this lifetime, but in the kingdom to come. And once this truth takes root in our hearts, we no longer chase results with desperation. Instead, we embrace the work with joy, knowing that eternity keeps the score and God Himself remembers every act of faithfulness.